Hello there, my name is Luciano Oliveira. I am a Brazilian attorney, also licensed in Texas and California, and today I'm going to answer this question. What are the statute of limitations for debts in Brazil? So there is the so-called general rule, and the general rule says that the time to collect a debt in Brazil is 5 years. This is in the Brazilian Civil Code. However, we do have many exceptions throughout the code, and therefore you should consult with a Brazilian attorney to make sure you're dealing with the correct statute of limitations applicable to your case at hand. Another concern about parties, about our clients following statutes of limitation, particularly when you consider the 5-year period, is that the longer you wait, the less probable it is going to be for you to recover credit. And that's a reality not only in Brazil or the United States, but actually throughout the world. The longer you wait, the higher the chances are that the debtor is not going to be able to pay your debt. What about checks and promissory notes? So for checks, the timeline is going to be 6 months after the due date of the check. And for promissory notes, the standard timeline is going to be 3 years. Interesting to note that checks are practically non-existing in international trade with Brazil. Very common for us to hear, well, can I send a check to Brazil? If I pay a supplier with a check, if I pay someone with a US check, can't they just deposit in Brazil since maybe they have a bank such as Citibank in there? And even though, yes, you may find banks in Brazil matching whatever names you have in the United States, these banks are not the same thing. They may operate under a similar umbrella, but the rules for banking and checking in Brazil are substantially different. And therefore, you're never going to be able, and I say never, you're never going to be able to discount or to use a US check in Brazil. That's the same thing for promissory notes. So if you're getting a promissory note from a Brazilian party, or if you're getting a check from a Brazilian party, of course you're not going to be able to do anything with this document in the United States. Sometimes we see, like in close communities, for people to exchange such documents, such, let's say, instruments of credit among them. But this is usually a bad idea because these parties, they are not qualified to check if the instrument is valid, and therefore it's also common for us to receive consultations or clients sharing documents that are supposed to represent a credit, but many times they are just going to be scams. Going back to the statute of limitations, there are many special cases in our civil code and in separate laws as well. And whenever you see those exceptions or these special cases, you're going to see statute of limitations ranging from 1 to 5 years, and in some rare cases, even 10 years. But most of the cases related to commercial activity in Brazil, they are going to range between 6 months for a check to 5 years for most of the debt-related instruments and debt. So going back to the foreign citizen or foreign company's perspective when trying to collect a debt in Brazil, or maybe hopefully before you're trying to collect a debt but you're trying to understand the debt dynamics in Brazil, it is very important for you to always try to collect as soon as possible. Never wait for years to start a collection effort. A situation we see very often here at the firm goes like this. The supplier in the US is selling to a Brazilian company who pays like for 1 purchase, 2 purchase, 3 purchase on time, and then eventually the US supplier is going to increase the credit limit, and eventually this Brazilian company starts to pay with a delay, and this delay gets worse and worse, and eventually the US company realizes something is wrong, and usually at that point it becomes more difficult for the US company to collect, because then the debt may be substantial, maybe bigger than the Brazilian company can kind of take care, even in installments. So the idea here is that as soon as you have signs of non-performance, you are not going to extend more credit. Instead, you're going to find professional help in Brazil to make sure that this buyer is going to pay what they owe. And at that point, after they pay what they own, yes, you can extend the credit, you can rebuild the relationship. Finally, just highlighting what we said, even though that statute of limitations in Brazil range from 6 months to 5 years, always important to have the concrete case at hand. Also common for our clients to bring documents to the firm which they believe it to be perfectly fine, only for us to review and find out they are not really compliant with Brazilian law. Make sure you are covered, schedule a consultation with us, and let's take a look at your concrete case so we can provide the best advice, the best route possible for your needs. I hope to see you in our next video.